Elon Musk's Starlink just became the latest victim in escalating global tensions. Russia has reportedly shot down one of Musk's satellites, a bold and dangerous signal that space may soon be the next theater of war. Starlink, which has been instrumental in providing global internet access and aiding military operations, especially in Ukraine, now finds itself under direct threat. This isn't just a blow to Musk's ambitions. It's a stark warning that our once peaceful skies are becoming contested. So, what does this mean for the future of space? If taking down satellites becomes the new norm, how secure will our communications, technology, and daily lives remain? Part 1. The attack and immediate fallout. In today's world, space isn't just for exploration. It's a new frontier for communication, commerce, and yes, even warfare. Elon Musk, through his company SpaceX, has led a revolutionary shift with Starlink, a satellite network designed to provide global internet access. But recent events have brought its role into a new and dangerous light. Russia's attack on one of Musk's satellites isn't just an isolated incident, it's a sign that outer space is becoming a battlefield. So, why is this attack so significant, and what does it mean for us? Understanding Starlink more than just internet. If you've ever heard Musk speak about Starlink, you'd know it's more than just providing high-speed internet to underserved areas. Sure, that's part of the mission, but it's also an essential tool in modern military operations. Starlink's satellite network, thousands of compact satellites orbiting Earth, provides internet coverage to remote regions traditional infrastructure can't reach. But Starlink's impact goes far beyond civilian internet access. In the military arena, especially in conflict zones like Ukraine, it has become an invaluable asset since the beginning of the war. Starlink's battlefield role in Ukraine has utilized Starlink not only to maintain essential communication lines, but also to control drones and gather critical intelligence. In many ways, Starlink has become an invisible yet pivotal force on the battlefield. And this hasn't gone unnoticed, especially by Russia. The Russian government has viewed Starlink with suspicion, given its role in helping Ukraine resist Russian military advances. With Starlink's ability to keep Ukrainian military communications secure, Russia has faced new challenges in disrupting their efforts. So, when Russia targeted a Starlink satellite, it was anything but random. It was a calculated move to show that even space is fair game in this conflict. Russia's bold attack and the broader implications. The consequences of Russia's strike on Starlink extend far beyond this single incident. For a while, experts have speculated that Russia has been quietly building its capabilities for space warfare. They've been developing a range of anti-satellite weapons specifically designed to target and disable enemy satellites. Among these are satellite inspectors, satellites that can maneuver in space, get close to others, and either disable or destroy them. This is likely what occurred with the Starlink satellite that Russia attacked. But to understand how prepared Russia is for space warfare, let's take a deeper dive into their history with these inspector satellites. Inspector satellites, Russia's space arsenal. Russia has a long history of experimenting with space warfare technology, specifically with inspector satellites that can interact with others in orbit. For instance, Cosmos 2499, launched in 2014, raised suspicions with its high maneuverability and unnervingly close approaches to other satellites. Presented as a peaceful mission, it quickly sparked concerns about its true purpose. These inspector satellites have advanced capabilities that suggest they could do more than just observe, potentially gather intelligence, or even disable other satellites. Then, in 2017, Russia launched Cosmos 2519, equipped with even greater inspection abilities, along with a smaller satellite, Cosmos 2521, which could get close enough to other satellites to potentially disrupt or disable them. Inspector satellites, more than just observers, These inspector satellites are akin to spies in the sky, capable of both peaceful and hostile missions, which has left other nations, especially the US, on edge. The concern isn't just their ability to observe, it's the potential to physically damage other satellites. With robotic arms to disable components or the capability for direct collision, these satellites could be weaponized at any time. Russia's growing arsenal is a clear signal that space might soon be an increasingly hostile, contested environment. But this conflict isn't just about Ukraine, it's about how integral Starlink and similar networks have become in modern warfare. Starlink, the practically invincible network. Unlike traditional communication networks that rely on ground-based infrastructure, Starlink operates through a vast network of satellites, making it nearly immune to standard military disruptions. Russia's usual tactics, bombing towers or cutting cables, won't work here. For Russia, taking down just one Starlink satellite could impact Ukraine's communications or drone operations, but it would take far more to bring down the entire Starlink system. That's because Starlink's thousands of satellites work in unison. If one fails, others quickly fill the gap, keeping the network virtually intact. Starlink's resilience and Russia's calculated move. Starlink's resilience makes it a formidable target, which is precisely why Russia's attack holds such weight. This was more than a one-off act. It was a way for Russia to test the boundaries, exploring how far it can push space-based conflict without sparking a full-blown international crisis. So, what does this mean for the future of space and international conflict? First, it's a stark wake-up call. Space is no longer just a peaceful realm for scientific advancement. It's becoming a new battleground, and satellites like Starlink are at the heart of it. This incident could be the start of something much larger. Welcome to the age of space warfare, a new arms race, space as the next battlefield. Russia isn't the only player in this arena. The United States, China, and several other nations are also developing anti-satellite technologies, potentially setting the stage for a space arms race. Just think about the implications of space filled with weapons designed to disrupt satellites. We depend on these satellites for everything: GPS, financial systems, military operations, and even day-to-day communications. A full-scale conflict in space could disrupt entire systems, creating chaos on Earth. That's why this attack on Starlink is about much more than a single satellite. It could be the opening move in a whole new type of conflict. So, what's next? Right after the attack, the US government, SpaceX, and Elon Musk himself quickly condemned Russia's actions. There's talk of addressing the incident at the United Nations, and we might even see additional sanctions on Russia as a result. But beyond the immediate political response, this event has shown just how vulnerable our satellite infrastructure is and how essential it is to protect it. As for Musk, he's not one to back down. You can be sure SpaceX is already working on ways to make Starlink even tougher, perhaps even with added defensive capabilities. This attack might push Musk to expand Starlink further, deploying more satellites to make the network even harder to dismantle. Broader consequences and global fallout. Hearing that Russia attacked a Starlink satellite raises the question, what now? The impact isn't limited to this one satellite. This incident has global repercussions that touch on security, space warfare, and international relations. The attack triggered a wave of reactions, from government officials to everyday people, all recognizing that a satellite with significant influence on global communications and military operations was deliberately targeted. The US government, unsurprisingly, responded swiftly. There's already talk of raising this at the United Nations, emphasizing that space has become a critical piece of modern geopolitics. Diplomatic shockwaves. One of the most immediate consequences of Russia's move is the diplomatic fallout. Targeting a commercial satellite like Starlink represents a bold shift, taking warfare to an entirely new level. This isn't as straightforward as firing on a battlefield. It's a calculated move that sends shockwaves through international communities, raising alarms about space-based security. This incident is more than a military maneuver. It's a strategic message that space is no longer a safe zone, prompting countries around the world to rethink their stance on space and global security. The bold implications of targeting a commercial satellite. Striking a satellite like Starlink, one that bridges both commercial and military utility, has seismic implications. It sends a potent message that space is no longer exempt from geopolitical tensions. Russia's recent actions have escalated global anxieties, drawing swift and severe criticism from nations around the world, particularly the United States, which has condemned the attack as a blatant act of aggression. This isn't simply about taking down technology, it's an assault on a system vital to communication, affecting both civilians and military operations. Experts predict that this may push global powers to impose even harsher sanctions on Russia, a nation already under intense scrutiny for its activities in Ukraine. But it's not only the US that's paying attention. Europe, heavily reliant on satellite tech and a staunch US ally, may soon join in with sanctions and diplomatic responses. Europe and global alarm, a wake-up call for space security. European nations, who depend significantly on satellite technology for everything from communication to defense, recognize the broader threat that Russia's action represents. This isn't just an attack on Elon Musk's Starlink. It's a warning shot to the world about the vulnerabilities embedded in our space infrastructure. Now, more than ever, the fragility of these systems in the face of aggression is evident. The attack may soon lead to heated discussions at the United Nations as the US and its allies press for a global response. For years, efforts have aimed to demilitarize space, but Russia's actions underscore the urgent need for established rules and consequences for such moves. Targeting a commercial satellite has destabilized the delicate global balance, placing pressure on international institutions to react swiftly to prevent further escalation. The looming reality of space militarization. Just a few years ago, the concept of space warfare seemed like pure science fiction. Today, the Starlink attack shows us that space is no longer a peaceful, untouched frontier, but a potential battlefield, with satellites used for military communications being primary targets. Consider the implications. If a single satellite's destruction has caused such a stir, what happens if more attacks follow? What if countries begin to target other essential satellites, like those supporting GPS or surveillance? Losing internet for a short time is one thing, but disrupting the satellites that manage air traffic, control weaponry, and facilitate smartphone functions would cause chaos. The attack on Starlink has intensified worries about space's future. Is this the beginning of a space arms race? The space race and rising stakes for Musk and SpaceX. Just like the historical arms races on Earth, where nations competed to build powerful weapons, we could see the same competition unfold in space. Already, the US, China, and Russia are pouring funds into space technology, not only for exploration, but for defense. The focus is on protecting satellites and, if necessary, neutralizing enemy satellites. For Elon Musk and SpaceX, this escalation raises the stakes considerably. Starlink, originally designed as a commercial venture to provide global internet, is now a critical military asset, making it a prime target. Starlink isn't just enabling Netflix streaming in remote areas, it's helping Ukraine's military maintain connectivity and combat Russian aggression. Russia is well aware that by attacking Starlink, it's attempting to neutralize a significant Ukrainian advantage in the ongoing conflict. Starlink's resilience, Russia's challenge, and the bigger threat. But here's the twist. Taking down one Starlink satellite doesn't disable the network. Starlink's innovative, decentralized structure, comprising thousands of small satellites, means that even if a few are destroyed, the network remains operational as other satellites quickly fill the gap. Unlike traditional satellite systems where losing one could cripple the service, Starlink's design makes it highly resilient. For Russia to truly disrupt it, they'd have to target hundreds, if not thousands of satellites, a feat that would undoubtedly trigger a global crisis. Still, this incident is a wake-up call, exposing the vulnerability of satellites to anti-satellite weapons. And it's not only Russia that's capable of such actions. China has also been advancing its own anti-satellite arsenal, amplifying the need for urgent international dialogue on space security. Space warfare's impact on civilians and the growing debris crisis. As more nations invest in space technology, the likelihood of conflict extending into space becomes a looming reality. But it's not only the military at risk. Civilians who rely on systems like Starlink for internet access, news, and medical assistance are also vulnerable. In Ukraine, for example, Starlink has provided essential connectivity, even as traditional networks were disrupted. By attacking Starlink, Russia indirectly impacts countless civilians who depend on it in conflict zones, further highlighting the stakes of space-based infrastructure in modern warfare. Beyond the immediate impact, there's a broader concern: space debris. Space is already cluttered with defunct satellites, rocket remnants, and fragments from past collisions. Blowing up satellites only worsens this problem. Each destroyed satellite produces thousands of debris pieces that can collide with other satellites, creating a catastrophic chain reaction known as the Kessler syndrome. If this happens, entire regions of space could become unusable, which would be disastrous, given that satellites power vital systems like GPS, communication networks, and military operations. This isn't just about losing streaming services or navigation. It could mean the collapse of systems essential to global security and daily life, Russia's motive, and the message to the world. Russia's decision to target Starlink is more than just a tactical move to disrupt Ukraine's communications. It's a message to the US and its allies, showing that Russia can strike where it hurts and isn't afraid to escalate conflicts into space. For Russia, space represents a new frontier to assert power, even as it faces sanctions and international isolation. This bold action suggests that they are willing to challenge space's traditional neutrality and establish it as a potential arena for geopolitical influence. Elon Musk's challenge and opportunity, reinventing space resilience. For Elon Musk, this incident is both a challenge and an opportunity. SpaceX, a pioneer in space technology, might now accelerate its innovations to make Starlink even more robust. Musk's decentralized model already offers a degree of resilience, as Starlink is composed of thousands of satellites that can fill in gaps if some are taken down. However, this attack may push SpaceX to explore defensive technologies for satellites. Imagine a future where Starlink satellites are equipped with capabilities to evade attacks, jam signals, or even deploy countermeasures. Musk's reputation for ambitious ideas makes it conceivable that Starlink's next evolution could involve advanced satellite defenses, reshaping our expectations of space infrastructure's durability. The next arms race, preparing for conflict beyond Earth. The Starlink attack has caught the world's attention, and both governments and private sectors are paying close attention. As satellites become more critical to everything from military operations to civilian services, the risk of space conflict is growing. For many governments, the question now is not whether to invest in space defense, but how much. The incident may have ignited a new type of arms race, with countries like the US, China, and Russia ramping up investments in space technology, not just for exploration, but for defense and deterrence. We could soon see a rush to develop satellites that not only serve communication purposes, but also defend against potential attacks, marking a shift in the role of satellites as both tools and targets in warfare. Legal and diplomatic dimensions, establishing rules for the final frontier. The attack on Starlink underscores an urgent need for international rules governing space conduct. Space law, still in its infancy, faces unprecedented challenges as countries take increasingly aggressive stances. Traditional conflict zones have frameworks like the Geneva Conventions, but there's no equivalent for space warfare. This lack of regulation creates a precarious environment where nations can operate with minimal accountability. Russia's actions have already triggered diplomatic responses, with the US and its allies considering raising the issue at the United Nations. Global leaders face a crucial decision: either work to establish rules and deterrents to keep space from becoming a battlefield, or risk a cascade of escalating conflicts with dire consequences for all. The attack on Starlink may go down as a turning point in space policy, pressuring global institutions to establish boundaries and penalties for space-based aggression. The stakes are high. Without clear rules, the militarization of space could spiral out of control, threatening the safety of satellites that our interconnected world relies on every day. The uncharted territory of space warfare and global response. It's easy to forget that space, while vast and seemingly untamed, is governed by international treaties. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967, for instance, aimed to keep space for peaceful purposes and specifically prohibited weapons of mass destruction in orbit. But here's the catch. This treaty was crafted long before satellites like Starlink existed, and before the notion of space warfare was a serious consideration. Today, the technological landscape has changed dramatically, and with it, so have the risks and implications of conflict in space. This gap in the regulatory framework leaves unanswered questions. Should countries be allowed to target commercial satellites with military functions? Where do we draw the line between military and civilian assets in space? In the aftermath of this Starlink incident, these unresolved issues will undoubtedly push governments and international organizations, such as the United Nations, to rethink space laws and consider new policies. Without clear guidelines, we could be on a dangerous trajectory where anything goes in space, a situation that benefits no one. Space debris, a growing crisis with global impact. When a satellite is destroyed, it doesn't simply vanish. It fragments into thousands of pieces, creating dangerous space debris. This debris can collide with other satellites, space stations, and even the International Space Station, ISS, worsening an already critical issue. More collisions could spark a cascading effect called Kessler syndrome, where debris accumulates to the point that space itself becomes nearly unusable. Every incident like the Starlink attack worsens this crisis, threatening to make space exploration and satellite operations more perilous for all. The world is beginning to recognize that careless actions in orbit could have profound long-term impacts on all space-based operations. Russia's motives and the global response. Russia's move against Starlink isn't just a direct blow to SpaceX or Elon Musk, it's a calculated message to the world. By showing they have the capability and willingness to strike crucial infrastructure in space, Russia is demonstrating its strength amid rising sanctions and isolation over its actions in Ukraine. This act serves as a reminder of its remaining power on the global stage. However, this level of aggression rarely goes unpunished. Russia's actions could further alienate it from the international community, leading to stricter sanctions and perhaps driving away some of its remaining allies. Countries that have been non-aligned, such as India or others in the global south, may start rethinking their positions if it becomes clear that Russia is willing to push conflicts into a realm that could disrupt global communication and stability. China is also in a unique position. Although China and Russia have historically aligned on certain global issues, China's significant investments in its space program mean it has much to lose if space turns into an unrestricted battlefield. While China might see this situation as an opportunity to advance its interests, it also risks endangering its own satellite systems if it becomes entangled in escalating space tensions. The West's response: bolstering space defense. This attack will likely spur the US and its allies to strengthen space defense. The creation of the US Space Force reflects an increasing focus on protecting American interests in orbit, and this incident will only amplify that mission. Allied nations, including the UK and NATO members, will likely coordinate on strategies and technologies to safeguard their space assets, anticipating the potential for future conflicts beyond Earth, a new era of warfare, and unfinished rules. The attack on Starlink marks a profound shift in the way we think about space. This isn't just about one satellite, it's about what it signifies. We're moving into a future where space is a contested arena, and the rules are still in flux. For companies like SpaceX, this poses an immediate challenge and a call to innovate. But for the global community, it's a wake-up call. As the world scrambles to protect its space infrastructure and grapple with the legal ambiguities, one thing becomes clear: the next major conflict might not occur on familiar battlegrounds of land or sea. It might happen in the skies above, in the final frontier. So, what do you think about the future of space? Will it remain a place for exploration? Or are we witnessing the start of a new kind of warfare? Let us know in the comments below.